With my original review on Orion barely a month old, I'm surprised to express that some of my original thoughts on this coaster have already changed. During the last weekend of August, I was able to snag a few more rides on this Giga coaster, and I'm now ready to share some additional thoughts. Since this isn't a formal review, I won't be categorizing everything in the same way that I usually would, but I do want to touch and update a few rankings that originally I gave this coaster. Presentation earned a 10, and I'm sticking with that score. Not only did I appreciate the theming more this time around, but I was finally able to soak in the amazing score created by I'm a Score. Unfortunately, I can't play you a sample because of copyright reasons. You'll just have to take a trip out to Area 72 to experience it for yourself. If you can't make it out to the park anytime soon, there is a small 2-minute snippet featured in Orion's preview video released a few months back. Check it out as I provided a link to that video in the description notes. The ride theming really begins to come alive as the day comes to an end and dusk falls. The blue LED light that stretches the entire length of the lift hill adds a nice touch to the overall atmosphere of the ride. In fact, as it gets dark and the lights in Area 72 come on, they all seem to have a blue tint to them, playing along with Orion's color scheme. Because the park was only operating from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. during my first visit in mid-July, that's clearly not late enough to experience all the night atmosphere Orion has to offer, which is a true shame for those who missed that opportunity. Well, the park is now staying open later and will be operating through October, so there is plenty of time to visit Kings Island and check out this coaster at night. The next topic I want to touch on again, which will encompass both the ride's intensity and its fun factor, is the airtime. Before my review, I thought that Orion had decent airtime, but I didn't rank it extravagantly high. Well, now that I was able to get a few more rides, one in the very front and another in the very back, I have determined that Orion has some great moments of airtime. The first drop is amazing in the back row. Even the front row is no slouch. The wave turn and turnaround element have a light touch of float or airtime mixed in with some laterals that makes me feel like I could be tossed out the side of the train. Then comes the speed hill. I definitely undersold this element during my original review because the airtime during this moment was amazing. Solid ejector airtime in practically any row that you ride in. I felt like the giant airtime hill following the speed hill was about on par during my previous visit. It has good floater in almost every row. The bank turn was also on par as I remembered, but what I really don't remember was how much airtime you get flying into the brake run. The front row is a little more intense, but even the back row I found myself popping out of my seat. The amount of airtime that Orion delivers may not be on the same level as Diamondback, but I'd argue that the Speed Hill delivers some of the strongest ejector airtime I've experienced on a B&M coaster. So does this change my original score in the ride intensity category? No, I still think an 8.5 is a fair score. The airtime is definitely more prominent, but the positive G-forces are about still on par as they were before, and I just don't think it justifies a higher rating for ride intensity. Fun factor got a perfect 10 and originality got an 8, which I also think continue to be fair scores. Oh, and another thing before I move on to ride smoothness. Originally I said this coaster was best experienced in the front row. Well, after riding it again in the very front and the very back, I'm now starting to lean towards sitting in the back row. I thought the airtime was so much more insane in that back row. I literally laughed the entire way from the first drop until I was back on the brake run. Does that mean sitting up front is not going to be as good of a ride? No, this coaster actually has a great balance between the front and the back rows, but I'm starting to shift my opinion, and I think the back row is now the best place to ride Orion. The last category is ride smoothness. Originally I gave this an 8.5, but after rewriting it, I'm inclined to move that score up to either a 9.5 or a perfect 10 rating. I really didn't notice any of that rattle I originally talked about during my most recent visit. Maybe it was the wheels, the train I rode on, who knows, but I thought Orion was running about as smooth as you would expect. With that minor change to the rating, my new technical score would be a 9.2, a 0.2 increase, not a huge change. My personal score, which was originally a 9.5, will now be a perfect 10 rating. I think Orion is a fantastic roller coaster that seems to be getting better with each new ride. The airtime, speed, ride duration, and theming all seem to work together and create an excellent Giga coaster. Is the ride on the shorter side? Yes, but hopefully by next year the social distancing guidelines will be done away with and Orion will be a people-eating machine as it was created to be. Orion should smash through the lines, allowing you to get in multiple rides in a day, which is how I believe this ride was intended to be experienced. Before I wrap up this video, let me reiterate a few points. 1. Check out Orion at night, possibly snagging a night ride if you can. Number 2, the airtime is much better than I originally gave it credit for. 3, maybe the back row is actually better than the front row. Who knows? And 4, Orion seems to be running smoother than before. Oh, and one more thing, I know that some of you are wondering how this coaster stacks up against Diamondback. I did touch on that topic very briefly in my original review, but keep your eyes peeled as I have a ride comparison video coming your way in the near future. There's a lot to unpack in that discussion, so you'll just have to wait for that video. Alright, that concludes my additional thoughts on Orion. Let me know what you think of Orion in the comments below. Please hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and as always subscribe so you won't miss out on future content by X Screen Thrills.